Hello, White Sox fans, and welcome to another edition of the Future Sox podcast. My name is Ian Eskridge. Joining me this evening is James Fox. How are you, James?
Good, man. How's it going?
It's going well. I enjoyed actually having a spring breakout this year as opposed to last year where it got rained out, so that was pretty slick. Um, uh, you have any quick thoughts on that at all? Like anything before we start really digging in?
No, watching it was interesting. I didn't know how they were going to disperse like pitchers because it's like, how many of these guys do you actually want to see, right? But then when Hagen and Schultz mow through 4 innings, you're like, oh boy, like, it's just like, are these guys going to be an inning each after this? You feel like there's some guys like who are probably just on like different, like days where it's like not their day or whatever, even though they're on the roster. Like, I don't know the last time Grant Taylor pitched or when he's supposed to or whatever, because he didn't pitch today, right? So
Nope.
I didn't know if they'd like throw Grant Taylor out there like next. So then once it was Gowans, I'm like, okay, they're gonna kind of do this and then kind of go to the pen. It seemed like. I did think it was interesting. Like Eater got his 1 inning, right? Is that going to be the role? Like I don't, like it's one of the small storylines I'm looking forward, not forward to necessarily because we've had so many like injuries that like I feel like the Charlotte rotation is kind of battered. I don't know what they're going to do if they're going to hike somebody else up there that they weren't going to originally, but that's stuff we can deal with over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, we've already seen starts there for Garrett Shanley. So, I mean, it's possible we could see him there. We could see Shane Murphy there. He's also pitched in Charlotte as well. Um, I don't know exactly what the White Sox plans are for Shane Murphy, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them do that, in a sacrificial lamb type, sort of way,
Right.
because they haven't been shy about putting him there in previous, previous spots. So,
Well, I mean, Nastrini and Iriarte are probably definitely in that rotation. I don't know that Eater will be, but he could be, I guess, in theory. Um, and then Jared Schuster, like Merck reported early in camp that he was a starter, but now they're kind of talking otherwise. Like I think Venable said when he was going down that he was gonna like pitch in relief potentially. So I don't know. Who knows? Like we'll see, right? And there's a couple. Who do they have? Jonathan, former Royal, on the NRI deal.
oh,
Heasley, Jonathan Heasley.
yeah,
I guess
Heasley.
like in theory he could be in the rotation. I just don't know. Like if you have guys like Tyler Schweitzer, Wickelman, Gonzalez, and Gowans bookmarked or earmarked, I guess, for Birmingham, do you just like take one of them and put them in Charlotte, even if you didn't think they were ready to be there? I don't really know, but I guess we shall see.
Yeah. So they opened up the game today with Hagen Smith pitching the first 2 innings. Did that surprise you that they didn't have Schultz start?
A little bit, yeah. um, but I think they're both. I think it's pretty evident they're the same day because I mean I thought they were going to go to two different levels. There was like an interesting Scott Merkin tweet today that seemed like informed speculation. It's not something that he would necessarily tweet about unless somebody mentioned it to him. That Schultz, Smith, and Taylor could all be in the Birmingham rotation. Which look, I think it would be fun for people in Birmingham and people that write like the preview for the team. I just I don't know. I kind of thought Schultz would get the opening day start in Birmingham with Smith in Winston and Taylor also in Winston just because of his like whatever pitch limits he has. It just seems like it would be kind of difficult to have him in a staff that's like on a 5-day turn basically.
Yeah, and Paul Janisch mentioned the possibility of this being a thing, breaking camp with those three guys in Birmingham as well during his little spot today on the spring breakout game. So I mean, I guess it is a real possibility. I mean, obviously we trust Merck's tweets,
Oh yeah, it
but
seems like if they're talking about it, it's definitely on the table. I just don't know if like plans would need to be altered if like Grant Taylor is throwing 4 innings. Is he going every 5 days? Is he this year essentially what Schultz was last year? I, I don't really know. I mean, he's not like a high school guy that they're going to be super careful with, but he also hasn't pitched at all.
yeah, he has to get innings at some point, but obviously they're not going to want to run him out there 130 innings this year.
Right. I think like close to 100. I think if he throws 100 innings this year, he will be a top 50 prospect in baseball, and we can start talking about him early 2026 arrival with the other two guys. I would think.
Yep. Interesting little development there today. Was not expecting that at all.
No.
Speaking of, before we dig into the spring breakout game, I want to bring up what Wolf put in here in the comments, which was also something that was unexpected. Sean Burke was named the opening day starter today.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. I do think there's like a gets thing where like I never really thought it was going to be Martin Perez because I thought they'd go with like an in-house guy. I think Cannon, while look, I don't know how much spring training matters ultimately. He would have been tough to give the opening day start to like after his spring essentially. I kind of thought it was going to be Davis Martin, but I think I told you off air it kind of seems like Getz just wants the guy with the biggest stuff on opening day. I think he just believes in opening day. I think Burke, they like him. He went from a guy who, I think both of us included, kind of wrote off a little bit as far as like being a starting pitcher anymore, just because of like some of the injuries. And then he was great in 4 starts last year. He was great this spring. He's got really good stuff. So why not him? So I mean, it's a little bit interesting. It's a former third rounder. Him and Cannon are both third rounders, both starting in the rotation. So I hope those are, I hope Davis is the number 2 starter though, because I'm going Saturday too. So I'd like Burke and Martin just for, my selfish reasons.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I would rather see Davis Martin than Martin Perez on Saturday, personally.
You what?
Um,
Yeah, I would
but
much rather. Yeah. I mean, I'll live with if it's Cannon, like that's fine too, but yeah, I don't need to see Martin Perez if I'm going to be there in person.
yeah, I will say though that Martin Perez's last start, he looked pretty
Pretty
good.
pretty good.
Other than this the solo shot that he gave up in the first inning, he was
Yeah, I
pretty
don't
good.
I don't think their starting pitching is going to be a huge problem.
Me
Now,
either.
I don't know if they're going to be able to score any runs, but I think the starting pitching is going to be okay.
Yes, indeed. All right, well, let's get so for those of you who did not see the tweet, we will be having Rogelio Castillo from coming over here to do an Ale Central preview with the Tigers here in a little bit. So let's go ahead and crack into this spring breakout game here. Like I mentioned, Hagen, made the start today, and then Noah followed up. I don't think there was any surprises there. We've seen Hagen Smith's command has been like a little bit wonky here and there. Um, and his pitch count did kind of escalate a little bit quicker than I thought it would. Um, but I thought, obviously he looked pretty stinking good. And Noah Schultz, I thought, came out and just pretty much
Shoved.
showed
Yeah.
why he's the number one left-handed starting pitcher in a left-handed pitcher in minor league baseball right now.
Yeah, I mean, like Hagen obviously was wild early, and I think that's part of his game. I mean, that's one thing where, like, if it doesn't work, right, it's gonna be that. It's gonna be the command. But I mean, I thought it was huge that he got the ground ball for the double play. He's not just out there trying to strike everybody out. So that'll be stuff like that'll be big for him. And then obviously the days where he's on, um, he's just you're not going to be able to hit him. So yeah, having those two guys is going to be fun. At least once every 5 days will be interesting. I hope. I mean, I don't know. I'd almost like I was kind of talking about how they should be the same night, but it'd actually be better if they were different nights probably. So then you get one of them. You don't need Schultz and Hagen night like on one night during the year.
Yeah, I mean, for some purposes that would be kind of fun, but let me see. Let's look here. All right, so following them, we had Gowans come out, and Riley Gowans. I think he made one appearance in spring training for the White Sox, if I can remember correctly, and pretty much the same exact results today that he had with the White Sox, which was a lot of very hard contact. It does not look like he's hitting his spots yet, so let's hope that that kind of rounds back into form here when he goes back down to North Carolina here
Well, it kind of looks like
or
how
Birmingham.
it kind of looks like how Cannon has looked, where just like if your stuff's not crisp, like you're gonna get murdered in Arizona. Like if your breaking stuff doesn't work, is he's not a guy that throws super hard. I will say like I don't know how much it was aided last year, but Birmingham, like Regents, that's Regents Field right now. That's
Yep,
yeah,
Birmingham.
Regents
Yep.
Field. Yeah, that's a great place for guys like him. Like just the way he pitches. That's good. That's a guy where could have like a lot more success at Birmingham, and we're very excited. And then Charlotte doesn't go so great, and we'll see, right? But I think he's firmly on like the fringe prospect map at this point. Like when you're in Double A, like putting up the numbers he put up. So yeah, I don't know. Do you think is it noteworthy at all that he was the next guy, or do you think he just needed work and he happened to be the guy that they threw?
Yeah, I kind of think that that's that's the way it lined up, I guess. Because like if you look at the guys that pitched in this game, um, we've seen all of them except for Zach Franklin. That's the first time we've seen Zach
Mm-hmm.
Franklin in spring training, and I think that just probably these are the guys that needed to get work, and they were also, they fit in the spring training, the spring breakout roster, So I kind of I feel like that's probably the way it was, is that he was in line for some work, and you know, unfortunately, Coffee only got one up and down and only got to throw for one out
Yeah.
coming in, but um,
Based off based off of what we know um about this past draft and just like how some members of the front office feel about Nick McLean, is that a surprise that he got in the game?
I don't think no, I don't think so. I mean, I think that it made sense that he came in as a sub later on in the game. It would have been nice to see him actually because he did not get in it bat.
No, but he went in and
So
played some center field though, like
yeah,
late.
I mean, it
Yeah.
would have been nice to see him get in it bat, and he
Yeah.
didn't even get a plate
So he
appearance. So that
was
was
I
kind
mean
of a bummer.
he was picked higher than Saki, but Saki was given more money. So I'm always kind of just like watching these things. They clearly like Nick McLean though, and he's a guy who if he's healthy like could move pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I will say one thing that was not good today was the play in right field. You had Varys in right field, and he kind of caught, ended up allowing, a triple on one of his, or maybe it was Zavala that allowed the triple on misplaying a fly ball in right field. But
Yeah, Zavala
you
was
know,
not good.
yeah, which is weird because in center field he's really good. So I think that just putting him in right field as the first time playing in a game in Arizona for at least that we've seen, wasn't definitely was not a good look.
Okay, so Wolf asking is McLean a legit center fielder? I don't know. Like he's like never played there. He's played there some, but he was a corner guy in college, but he's like a tweener corner guy. He's smaller, he's like 5'10". He does have a plus throwing arm, but I don't know that he's ever going to have like the power necessarily for right field even though his arm fits right field. So I think they'll try to play like if he's the primary center fielder in Kannapolis, I wouldn't I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. But I do think a lot of scouts think he moves to a corner probably.
Yeah, that would make sense. So I kind of wanted to at least mention, we've been through the pitching. I wanted to at least mention the defensive plays that we saw today. We saw a really nice play from both Montgomery brothers, Colson and Braden. You had Colson making a nice rangy play with a kind of a looping throw, and the guy that he threw out wasn't, he's not a speedster or anything, but it was a very nice play. And for the people that don't think he can play shortstop, it was a super accurate throw. It's the kind of thing that you like to point out and say, hey, look, he can do this. It's just I think it's a matter of repetitions.
Yeah, and he's an athlete. He's just awkward looking. Like it's just kind of like he's just so tall, but I mean he was a basketball player. Like basketball players are probably the best athletes, right? So, I don't know that they wouldn't try to find a better shortstop, but they don't have one right now. He's going to be the shortstop for most of this season. I think, I think both of us were, or neither of us was too surprised that he got optioned to the minor leagues. It's kind of what we've been saying. Maybe if he had those 9 days worth of at bats and he like went nuts, like maybe they, based off what Getz has shown us, like maybe they do it and bring him north with the club. But I'm not heartbroken at the fact that he's not going to be playing in cold weather in March in Chicago. So
Now, see, you got Doug. See, now you're going to say something that's going to be divisive here. We have the Doug saying hockey players are the best athletes.
yeah, maybe. I mean, they play like 18 minutes, like, or 20
Yeah, they
minutes.
play really short shifts. That was going to be my point as well, because then when I look at it, between soccer and rugby,
Well, yeah, soccer's tough too.
like those
You got to
those
run for
guys are,
days.
yeah, it's that's
I
something
mean, have you
else
ever
as well.
played? Maybe you ever played full court basketball as an adult? Like, it's impossible.
Yeah,
Like, it's
it's not
like
fun.
impossible. Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. So also, as you mentioned, the McLean catch out in center field was pretty fantastic as well. Um, and this chime in here from Beef, of course, is no
Yeah.
surprise. He is he loves to cape for basketball players. He's a former basketball player himself, so
A
that's where that,
star,
of course, that's coming.
a
Yeah,
star at De La Salle High School.
star basketball player. My apologies
Yeah.
on that. Also, we got to see Edgar Caro when he didn't have a long uh, delivery from his pitcher. He did manage to get a caught stealing today, so that was nice to see. Oof. There you go. A robust 1.7 points per game in his senior year. That is fantastic. So other things. Just my personal thoughts watching this game. And I don't know whether this was kind of like one of those things where the coaches were like, just go out there and have fun. I felt like every single one of those guys was trying to hit the ball to the moon.
Oh yeah. Some of those
Uh,
Braden Montgomery hacks.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Colson Montgomery hacks, he.
And that's the best that Gabriel Hughes has looked since Gonzaga. I loved him coming out, and then the Rockies took him, and he was like an unusual profile for them. And then he got hurt, and but he was a first round pick. I mean, he went pretty high.
He looked very good, and then Brody Brecht looked awesome as well. The pitching for the Rockies today looked a lot better than I was expecting it to. So that didn't help the White Sox offense either, that I felt like was trying to tee off on the ball. So it kind of was like a perfect meeting of the worlds for one run to be scored by the White Sox prospect team.
Yeah, for sure. I think the broadcast, we talked about it a little bit. The broadcast was good too. I kind of liked having Connor's always prepared and he's interested in prospects, right? So you're not asking somebody to do the game that doesn't care. Like he's going to be pretty plugged in. And he was on Hit and Run with Matt Spiegel this morning, kind of made it seem like CHSN's going to do a lot of prospect stuff where they grab a camera crew and go down to the affiliates and stuff. So that'll be kind of fun if it's like Connor doing it with producers. But I thought Brooke Fletcher was pretty good too. So, I joked that on Twitter that should be the regular broadcast crew. And yeah, that would be fine with me.
Yeah, I thought that they provided a pretty decent call of the game, and I also, it kind of helped. They did have a lot of guests in the booth today, um, providing some insight into what all's going on in the farm system. For people that watch this show like every week, and for you
Right.
and I, it
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily like the most you know illuminating thing that I had heard. But there were a couple of little tidbits in there that were interesting.
Yeah. Some people probably learned like that Ryan Fuller existed like today. Like this was the first time. Like, oh, they have this guy. And he's got his no cards because he says the same thing every time somebody talks to him.
Yep. Yep, pretty much. It's not really canned answers, if you will.
Yep. Hit the ball on a
Um,
line in the air.
yeah, one thing I tweeted about Brody Brecht earlier, and we got a response from a former White Sox prospect that Brody Brecht had actually been working with him here over this last offseason. Did you happen to catch that?
I didn't. Who was it?
Jake, something with a P. Jake.
Oh, Palish?
No, not Palish. I'm gonna feel like a goof once I
I don't know.
remember
But I
who it
wonder if
is.
Hickman knows him too because they're both Iowa guys. I mean, he might.
Possible, yeah, because I had mentioned, about him uh, getting help from the Samardzija brothers
Mm-hmm.
last year when he was at Iowa, and then he chimed in and said, "Oh yeah, he's been working with us all offseason." I was like, "Oh, no kidding." So interesting stuff,
Yeah, I mean,
seeing
look,
how this whole
he's got to throw strikes. His stuff is ridiculous.
it really is. Like, he looked really like close to unhittable. I was impressed. Which, obviously I was impressed with his 102-mile-an-hour fastball or whatever it was at Iowa, but seeing him now in the pro ranks, Jake Sudreth, that's who it was.
Oh, yeah,
Guy who
okay.
was not ever a serious, prospect, but he was in the White Sox system at one point. And actually, he's working with Alan Thomas, and
Gotcha. Yeah.
that's the place that they were training Brody.
I think he
So
was 20. Was he 2023? So the White Sox took Grant Taylor, but Brecht went before them. He was like a supplemental round of Colorado.
yeah, I thought it was a comp pick or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Yep. So
They should have taken him in the first round instead of the guy they took, maybe.
I mean, looking at him now, possibly,
Mm.
definitely a possibility. So we got Rogelio showing up here in a few minutes, so I figure we move to stuff that's happening, across the White Sox org. Um, as I'm assuming everybody knows, because everybody's favorite prospect is Mason Adams. Um, went down with an injury in the second inning of his outing this week, and to me it looked like it could just be like a blister or something, but ends up that ended up being a elbow discomfort, and so of course, rightfully so, everybody was worried about UCL, but turns out it's a flexor, a partial tear in his flexor tendon, and it's generally a 6 to 8 week rehab.
Yeah, so
So
it'll be a bit. Probably won't see him for, you know, June,
yeah,
July,
see
something
him
like
in
that.
June.
All-Star
Yep.
break, apparently. The only thing it hurts is like his innings load, right? I mean, Davis Martin did it. Like, there's no reason why he can't come back and still make September starts for the White Sox or something. He's going to have fewer innings than they were anticipating, obviously. And he's not on the 40 man, which is kind of helpful, actually.
So James is asking here, hearing anything about a Drew Thorpe update, other than he's throwing
Yeah, seems good.
and is throwing off of a mound and throwing in practice games or whatever. No.
What do you
Uh,
think about did you see the beef loaf theory on Shane Smith related to Drew Thorpe? Have you seen this? So
no.
I've been kind of saying that I expect Shane Smith to be the fifth starter, but Beef posited that maybe they'll just let Bryce Wilson do it because he's going to get replaced by Drew Thorpe anyway. Like, and you just use Shane Smith in another role, which I think is kind of interesting. Like Shane Smith's more important than Bryce Wilson, so we'll kind of see. But I do think Thorpe will be in the rotation fairly soon, probably mid-May, you would think.
Yeah, and Bryce Wilson didn't look, altogether terrible today. He didn't look great, but he looked pretty good. He got some important strikeouts when he needed them, and didn't give up too many runs today, so that wasn't too terrible. Just the first inning gave up 2 runs, and then the rest of the runs were kind of an avalanche right at the end.
Yeah. So Juan is asking about a Luis Robert trade. I think he might have asked me about it on Twitter too. Is there like some like do the Dodgers need him? Are they? Is there?
Yes,
Do
yes. The
they?
Dodgers don't have enough offense.
No, but are they playing? Who's the guy? Who did they get from the Cardinals? Do they have like a center field opening right now? Is this like a thing? Was there like a Dodgers rumor somewhere? Because like I don't. The White Sox aren't going to trade Luis Robert unless they get two guys in the top 100, like fairly similar to like not as good as the Crochet return, but I think they want two pretty big pieces in return. And just from what I know or have heard, I just like don't think that's really been offered. So, could it be like it could be a May deal like Arias was last year potentially, but I don't think it's going to be within the next week or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't see it being anything that happens quickly. I wouldn't be surprised to Tommy Edmonds, who you're talking about. I don't really see anything like on the immediate horizon there. To me, I would be pretty surprised if he gets traded at this point. This close to the season, but
Yeah. I mean, Connor McKnight basically did say on the radio today, though, that it's not one of these things where they're like dying to go to the deadline. They just haven't got, like, when they hear what they want, they're going to trade him. I mean, they just haven't gotten that, basically.
Well, I guess we'll find out. Danny says, please no more trades for overhyped Yankees prospects. Agreed. It was also noted today on Twitter that Joey DeGaio was released, and so he popped up on Twitter and happened to mention that he's going to pursue pitching now. You have any thoughts on that?
Apparently, he was a really good pitcher in Nevada in high school. I'm kind of surprised that he's not doing it here, though. Like, I don't know. Does he resign in 2 days, like to a minor league deal where he starts pitching for the White Sox, or like does somebody want him? Like, it was kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't know
Because they said he'd been working on it with the Sox some.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I didn't hear anything about them re-signing him specifically, and that was like part of the thing there. I don't know. But I mean, I
It made
guess
it seem like
anything's
a pretty
possible.
straight release, like he's going to be going somewhere else. But did you also hear that he's changing his name to Jerry Callow as well? So,
Oh, Jerry Callow. He's gonna tell us about 327s and have his girlfriend show up and tell us about 327s.
Exactly. Yes.
All right. So as we had mentioned, we do have a guest tonight to do an AL Central preview here on the Tigers, and that is tonight's guest, which is Rogelio Castillo. Let me go ahead and as soon as I can get him here, should be good. There we go. All right.
Box.
We put him in a box. Here he is. Hello, Rogelio. How you doing?
Hey, how you guys doing tonight?
Just great. James is half out of his box.
Now I'm gone.
Disappeared.
What the heck happened?
You guys had your spring breakout today as well, correct?
Yeah, we did a live stream during it, and we had the voice of the Erie Wolves and Detroit Tigers now, Greg Gagne and Sam Lebowitz, who also does games out in Erie. So that was a lot of fun. We got a lot of fans interacted with us during the game.
It's a
fantastic,
really good farm system too that the Tigers have. You're not used to this. Usually, when I talk to you, it's not this good of a system.
James, I've been, as long as even before I started doing this, and I go back to my youth and watching a lot of bad Tigers baseball, watching teams like yourselves where you guys had it at one point. You had Alex Fernandez, you had Jack McDowell, all these teams that, like, growing up, the White Sox always had these great farm systems, great pitching and hitters, and the Tigers never had anything like this. And now that I'm doing this, it's mind-boggling to me because I've never experienced where now they're developing pitchers. I don't want to say left and right, but they have a system behind it. Now there's hitters behind this too, and the hitters are still, to me, I'm always gonna be cynical with this. I'm still gonna be very I don't like to say super cheery about it, try to be realistic, but I don't know. I saw Bryce Rayner today completely 100% blew me away today. We were kind of leery because we hadn't seen him all spring, and then he comes out and hits a ball 114 miles an hour and just, casually went 2 for 3 in his pro debut. Not bad.
Yeah, and they're better internationally than they've been. We'll get into the big league team here too, but it seems like this front office really loves taking high school guys, which I like, right? But then when you have a surprise wild card appearance that you weren't expecting and your awesome system is loaded with teenagers, it kind of puts you in a weird spot sometimes.
Yeah, and it's kind of a little bit hurt them right now, especially with Parker Meadows and Matt Verlin having injuries right now where they don't have anybody above AA that really can step in. I mean, Andrew Navigato, who's been in infielder for the system for a while, has been playing in the outfield. You have Ben Malgeri, who has struggled in spring after a hot start. Justice Bigby. They have a lot of 4A outfielders, but they don't really have another outfielder that can come in and really step up for the absence of Meadows. And Verling, well, he was going to start at third anyway. From all, you don't have another utility bat right now, and that's where the Tigers are kind of hurting right now at the moment, where they still need. I was very adamant about this during the offseason. They still need another bat because the minor leagues is filled to the brim with infielders, but outfielder wise, right now they still lack a little bit as of right now.
It's just like Max Clark is like the big one, and then what else is there?
So you have Roberto Campos, who's just starting his first year in AA, and he's the guy who's been in the system as a teenager, as a Cuban teenager. When Al Avila signed him for a big deal, but he's going to be entering his first full season in AA, and so he still needs to hit the ball a little more air bound because his ground ball percentage decreased last year, which is a good thing to see. But you want to see a little more of him getting out there. And his defense was, I'm not going to lie, it was atrocious, but it improved greatly last year in right field in 2024. And he's a guy that really showed a lot of improvement last year, but he's still, of course, you guys know AA is where you kind of go start seeing your merit. Then in terms of left field right now, they have a guy by the name of Brett Callahan, who still hasn't been above A ball. And it's just, again, in terms of even like Norma Pharma, who's out there right now, another A ball guy, Steph Stevenson, he's got a lot of speed, but he's not a guy who's a fourth outfielder type. They just don't have anybody as of yet that can really go in there outside of Max Clark. So a lot of these guys are a year or two away.
Yeah, and they've always, you're kind of talking about the pitching development there. I know, everybody kind of likes Fetter and what he's been able to do, right? How excited are Tigers fans for a full season of Jackson Jobe?
Oh, Tiger fans are really excited, and there's like this back and forth between myself and my partner Chris about if he's gonna, we had Scott Harris on, and one of the things Chris asked him was about, are you worried about his swing and miss stuff? He's like, I'm not worried about it, and but Tiger fans don't want to waste bullets, and I don't blame them. I mean, Jobe's stuff is that good. He's developed a curveball, which is even think about him in that slider as well. It's just where are you gonna are you going to manipulate his service time, or what are you gonna do exactly? And that's where I think the fine line is, because I think the Tigers they also have Kyler Montero, who's pretty good, who's done pretty well this spring, and Casey Mize has velocity's returned. He's throwing a splitter harder. And that's a new development, too. So that it'll go alongside with Reese Olson, who they worked on. One of the things we did find out is that essentially Reese Olson's back foot was kind of always a little bit inconsistent. It was just landing. It wasn't landing in the same spot. It was always kind of wobbly. And that's something they fixed in the offseason. And so with Jobe, I just hope that what the Tigers do with Jobe is use him responsibly.
Well, they definitely have to bring him up by that PPI deadline, right? Because it's just super valuable. Because he's he could win American League Rookie of the Year. Are you guys doing, or Tigers fans doing the thing where, if you feel like you're a playoff team, you're worried about him shutting down in September and then not having him for a playoff run potentially, or have you not gotten to that point yet?
I don't think we've gotten to that point yet, because I think Tiger fans are still, and myself included, kind of it's kind of surreal of what happened. The postseason run to me was one of those things that just no one saw coming. It was just the entire vibe at the ballpark was just like, is this really happening? Is this really is this a thing? It was kind of like a dreamlike state. And I think Tiger fans know too that this AL Central is a good division, and Cleveland and Minnesota and even Kansas City to a certain extent has our teams are not going to they're going to still be around. And so for the Tigers, it's just a matter of, even with Job, where do they fit in the puzzle? And I think Tiger fans are still trying to figure that part out, because I mean, would it be nice to go back to the postseason? There's some Tiger fans that think they win the division, but there's also, I think, a good contingency that, show me again and show me that you can, for the Tiger fans to, that wasn't just Minnesota just choking it away. It was Tigers showing their talent.
Yeah, Ian, I don't know if we talked about this, but I kind of feel like any of the non-White Sox teams could finish in any order, and like I wouldn't be surprised at all. You know what I mean? Like any of the 4 teams could finish first, any of them could be fourth. Like I'm just not sure like what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I also kind of think, at least this year, I don't think that it's going to be a guaranteed win anytime somebody plays the White Sox. I feel like there should at least be a little bit of fight there because Pedro's gone. I kind of think that kind of sapped any kind of happiness out of everybody in that clubhouse, regardless of what he was saying and what the GM was saying at the time. But yeah, I agree. I had a question for you about Spencer Torkelson. What are you guys expecting to get out of him at this point? Do you feel like he's kind of on a swing back? He's had a pretty decent spring from what I've seen. So do you have hopes for him kind of getting back to what you were hoping for?
Yeah, I think he's hitting home runs in the spring, which sounds like, okay, that should be a given, but he has not done that since he started spring training. So there's a start there. I think that if he can just do at least 20 home runs with at least 250, that'd be perfectly acceptable, because the Tigers don't have any right-handed presence whatsoever. It's a team loaded with lefties, and there's been talk about him starting in right field because the outfield right now situation is in dire straits with the injuries. And so I'd like to, it's one of those things with spring training stats, and you guys know this, it's good to see the progress, but then also you go, well, wait a minute, this is spring training. Like, just let's hold the phone here. And so I think that what Tiger fans are expecting is that a guy along with Kerry Carpenter can split the DH, but I think Tiger fans are still kind of waiting this. Like, there's just been a lot of cynical comments like, well, in spring training that would be a fly out in Comerica Park, and those kind of same old jokes again and again. And honestly, I think for Torkelson, if he can, I think Tiger fans, and I'm myself included, I want to believe that he's capable of a guy who can at least hit 20 to 30 home runs. And there was a comp early on that you guys might be familiar with, Paul Konerko, and I just thought that was like, some of the comps early on was like, come on. I mean, that was just a little bit too much, and I thought that he had a lot of pressure coming up too early from the previous administration. So I think between him and Riley Green, I think he's a lot more relaxed this spring, and I think it shows based off his performance.
Oh God, the Andrew Vaughn and Spencer Torkelson comparisons. They're just.
Got a request for your hat.
We heard the Paul Konerko stuff too, and it's just
that's ridiculous. So Howard, my hat is the Bung City. I'm trying this again. Let me try this again. Beer City Bung Hammers, which is the West Michigan Whitecaps affiliate. So that's their alter ego. I have another one of these. I have, I think, 5 or 4. No, there's a different color scheme for this, but that's a bung hammer, a glass of beer hitting off a bung hammer doing that. So, yeah.
First time I saw that hat, I laughed.
Did you know?
You know what's funny is I have I do have a Birmingham hat, by the way, because the Tigers at one point, well, actually they weren't an affiliate, but they, I'm a big fan of that logo because it's just sweet cap and so
it's classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so before we just get into kind of like expectations, what you're worried about, I'm this guy, so I have to do it now. Just how are Tigers fans going to be if it kind of goes off the rails a little bit, right? And the Tariq Skubal trade stuff starts being speculated. Just like he's a Boris guy, right? I mean, I just kind of think like I could see that front office just because you got Flaherty on a 2-year deal. Like there are pieces to move, right? You have a ton of prep guys in a system that's like top 5 everywhere. It's like really easy to pivot. I don't know how easy that is to do like after a playoff season, but I mean, I think the writing is kind of on the wall, if they are the team that's struggling and in fourth, something like that.
Yeah, I think Tiger fans would be first to do, the sky is falling kind of scenario, because that's what happened when the other night when they announced that potentially Spencer Russell might see some time in right and acted like he was going to be the next right fielder for 130 games. That wasn't the case at all. I think that with him being a Boris client too, that doesn't bode well, because you look at I heard about Bregman possibly when he was possibly signed with the Tigers that it was going to be a 2-year opt out, because in the same thing with Flaherty, it all adds up 2 years. So is it because Scooble only is going to have 2 years left here? And Boris guys tend to go to the market. That's all. That's his MO, and he gets his people his money. And so it is a thing where even last year it was getting so out of hand with some of the rumors and everything, with him possibly going to Baltimore and all that, and it was all just smoke anyways. And I think the Tigers last year I would have said if the Tigers would have traded him, I would have been like gave him pause, but the way they've been developing pitching and guys like Owen Hall that they just drafted and just some of the younger arms, I think there's an indication to me that they are kind of thinking ahead a little bit just in case they do lose Scooble. I think that their the ability to find diamonds in the rough, if you will, with the likes of Tyler Holton as an example, or even depending on what happens here with Brendan Hanafy, there's their ability to identify a type and work on that and make it into their strength will play well. But I mean, Scooble is a once in a lifetime guy. I mean, for Pete's sake, yesterday, 50 pitches, 41 for strikes. And it's just, I mean, we don't see many dominant left-handers in the Tiger. I mean, outside of Mickey Lolich, that's it. I mean, like the Tigers are not traditionally a lefty team, big time team. So I don't know. I think they might get it done, but with being Scott Boras, I don't know. I'm skeptical.
Yeah, it's not even a Tigers problem. It's just like those guys go to market generally.
Yeah.
So.
As far as that question goes, Howard, the Tigers can either contract Javier Baez. I think they will if he doesn't go and do anything. If he goes off to hit 200 and do Javi Baez things like he did a couple years ago when he first started here, then I could see them doing that, because they have to consider that Trey Sweeney is doing pretty well. I think it's going to be a platoon situation, but they're going to give every opportunity to the Baez before they do that. But I could see that happening if he gets to the point where he's just a negative, a real bad negative out there.
How are Tigers fans feeling about ownership right now?
That's a good question. I think they were surprised, because when you hear about they were trying to spend for Alex Bregman, and then the deal for Flaherty came out. I think the Tiger fans were kind of surprised, because Chris Ilitch, he's been going through his own thing personally, privately with his divorce and some other things going on, and he's got a reputation for not spending. And so I think Tiger fans were pleasantly surprised to hear what was going on. But if you look at Scott Harris and the way they're building the team, and the way he's constructed these people, the people around him, it is, to me, he is just doing what any like Tampa or any smart baseball organization would do, and that is just bringing in the best people out there to turn in what you have within your roster. Because I don't think the Tigers are going to rely on the big free agent home run anymore like they used to. I think the Tigers are going to kind of build themselves a little bit like Cleveland and build themselves like a farm system that's going to be reliable, that's going to have players that are going to be contributing. And then long-term guys, I think they'll sign, and maybe even more like I would say like the Kansas City Royals model, where a couple guys are hometown guys and they stay around as Tigers. Cole Keefe is signed for 6 years. I know they've been talking about, there's rumors about them trying to extend Riley Green, but I think Chris Ilitch has, for now, dodged a bullet where in your situation, I'm sorry. I don't know. It's every day, or like for a while, it's just like hearing Jerry Reinsdorf, every comment was just like, "Come on, man, really? Are you guys? Is he trolling you guys? Like, come on."
Well, it's kind of similar to here. Like Chris Getz basically was handed the GM job, and nobody was a fan of it. I mean, me and Ian were not. I mean, just he was the player development director, and he knew Jerry Reinsdorf. That's how Jerry Reinsdorf operates. But since Getz has taken over, he's operated like an outside hire, where he basically cleared out the entire organization, hired a bunch of people from outside, which is something the White Sox never do. So, I'm actually like a little bit optimistic with some of the moves he's made. You just have to kind of, now they have to just prove it. They have to draft and develop players, and then we'll see if it works. But he's definitely got people to buy into his plan. That's for sure.
Yeah, and somebody from an outside perspective, I mean, the fact that they were able to replenish the farm system very well with one trade, essentially from Boston. I mean, a couple other moves too. I really liked getting Miguel Vargas from the Dodgers. There's a couple players that are really intriguing on the White Sox side of things, but the fact that they're able to rebuild a pitching staff within a year and a half so far, I mean, I know it's still the jury's still out on that, but I gotta say, like, just I've been thoroughly impressed with the White Sox. I mean, I know there's still ways to go, but they've been able to at least make themselves a farm system that's going to make them competitive in the future.
So I know when the White Sox hired Tony La Russa, one of the people that a lot of White Sox fans wanted, obviously, was AJ Hinch. He, it didn't look great, I guess, at the beginning if you were only looking at records, right? There were White Sox fans that were like, see, AJ Hinch isn't that good because the Tigers stink or whatever. But, how is that relationship with Hinch and the new front office people? Because it is a little bit unorthodox. The manager stayed when you bring in a new front office.
Every time I'm down at the press box and every time the synergy is there. Like, it really is. It's not just like some fake. It's not fake. It's like you can tell between Harris and Hinch, even at the end of the season presser last year, there is a trust there. There is a good fundamental thing, and Harris is there every single day talking. Him and Hinch are having these private conversations, and I think there's a good rapport there because, I mean, when Hinch is talking about prospects like McGonigal and Clark, it's not just saying it like, one sentence or anything like that. They are in communication, and even with the way, I mean, look at the deals that he has. Some of the players that Hinch likes versatility. He likes players that can play multiple positions, and that's what Harris has done. Is started doing that a little bit with guys, like asking them to play extra positions, and I think there's a really good synergy there. And I don't like using that word because it's such a buzzword and such a cliche word, but it's true in this case.
Yeah, I was definitely one of those guys that was pro AJ Hinch, and we got the TLR, and then we replaced him with Pedro, and it's I feel like we finally got somebody that's worthy of a job, but we'll see how that turns out. We'll see. So what do you like? Are you thinking that are you thinking first place for the Tigers this year? Is that if you had to go out on a limb and put a prediction out there, is that what you're thinking?
I'm going to say they just I think they have a possibility of getting a wild card again, but I think for them to be in the division, to win the division, I think they have to be 100% healthy, or not 100% healthy. Let me rephrase that. Just better health. And right now, I worry that if Parker Meadows is out for a long period of time, but Parker Meadows is such a big difference maker when it comes to that lineup. Defensively, offensively, he started figuring things out last year, and he became such a force. And he really was a big part of that second half last year after he revamped his swing down in Toledo. And if he's out for an extended period of time, I worry about that because Riley Green is a left fielder now. That's it. He's not a center fielder anymore. I think he is a very good corner outfielder, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't have an outfielder like Parker Meadows out there for a long period of time, that is a concern to me. And I think that if his health is not there, if they can't stay healthy, then they just fall short. I think the AL Central is wide open. I don't think Cleveland's also going to be a slam dunk either. But man, I mean, like, you guys got Cleveland's got guys like Stephen Kwan, who's just annoying, just to me, annoying players. Just guys that you wish you had in your team because you know full well he would be spraying the ball all over the place. And the Tigers don't exactly have a hitter like that as of yet. They don't have a guy that can spray the ball anywhere they want. And I think that just, to me, is a concern right now. And I think that if they had a healthier horse like that, I would feel more confident with my answer. But right now, maybe they'll be over 500. But playoff wise, or excuse me, division wise, I don't know. I think they'll fall short.
So is that the path though? Like the path to them winning the division is awesome pitching, health, obviously. Do you need like, Spencer Torkelson to be better? Like what would you like if I told you the Tigers won the division? What do you think happens? Is it just, somebody wins it at 85 games, or do you think they really like take over and, do something unexpected basically?
I think it's do something unexpected. They get some right-handed power, get some production from that, and also some swing and miss stuff in the bullpen. Because I think the bullpen to me is still a concern. I don't take the fact that Jason Foley struggled a little bit last year. He didn't pitch in the postseason. Maybe it could have been dead arm. It could have been a lot of those things, but I still think they need another swing and miss guy out of the bullpen. I mean, I know that they signed Tommy
Canely.
Canely. Yeah, it's signed Canely, but I still think that I know they're still looking for another guy to put in their bullpen like that. And so I don't know, like if they can get another swing and miss guy in their bullpen and they can get some right-handed power from Torkelson or whomever, then yeah, that would be like saying, oh, okay, I can see why they finished first place. And that's the key, because that's the offense last year in the postseason was just like, it was battered. It was battered because they did everything they could to get to the postseason. And against a team like Cleveland, you really need your offense to be on full tilt, and they weren't able to do it against a really good Cleveland bullpen, which has some swing and miss guys.
Was the Jack Flaherty return, was that a surprise? Was it something Tiger fan? I feel like this is like fan fiction where we do this as fans where we're like, oh, we'll just trade the guy for an awesome prospect and then we can re-sign him in the offseason, and then it never ever happens. Like the Tigers actually did it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you, James. Like, I know he had a good rapport with the Tigers, and I know that was, but you always hear that. They're always like, oh, like you always think it's just like lip service, But the fact is that when one of the things that stood out to me when we were talking to Scott Harris was saying that, or during the press conference, one of the things he said to us is that he knew, like from afar, that something was off with his game. It was something to do with the way his arm angle was, and the fact that they had that conversation and Flaherty knew it. Flaherty was like, yeah, I would have been here. The Tigers would have been Cleveland. And he felt at home here. He has he played for his hometown team, the Dodgers, and wanted to come back here. And that says something about the Tigers' development and what have you. And that whole thing really surprised me. I'm not gonna lie. It was, and again, I know there's this thing about them getting Theron and the prospect return they had, but there was discussions that was the Dodgers weren't going to give up Dalton Rushing and all that, but it turns out it worked out for getting Theron because he was a guy. I mean, look at the numbers in Great Lakes. We saw him against West Michigan beforehand. Didn't really, was a big guy and everything, but now all of a sudden they found something and it made it click for him. So yeah, I think it really surprised. I mean, to me, it just cemented something that the Tigers have not, a good thing the Tigers not had for a long time, which is a reputation as a good organization where they have like that. Not to say they haven't been a good organization before, but people want to come here, and that's saying something because, and you guys know this in living in the Midwest, there's always that thing about like, well, it's not New York, it's not New York or LA. No one cares. Like, it gets tiresome. But if you're in a good organization, no matter where you are, people are going to come to you no matter what.
Yeah, and he's an LA kid. I just kind of thought he'd get a 5-year deal, and he just didn't. And then all of a sudden, he took a 2-year deal to go back to Detroit. I just found it interesting.
Yeah, and I know there was concerns about his back and what have you, so maybe that's what it was. But if you look at the market in general, gentlemen, it just seemed a little weird anyway. It seemed like all the movement was late. It was just even some of the pitchers. I don't know. It just seemed like a really weird thing that like none of these guys were like, what was it? Not a lot of pitchers got big, huge contracts outside of Corbin Burns, right? Like everybody else was like 2 or 3 years, but it just seemed like, I don't know. It was just a weird market this year, at least to me it was.
Yeah, it does. It seems kind of like there's a market suppression going on. We've heard, of course, the rumblings around social media and everything, saying that it has to do with the possible work stoppage coming up here soon. But as I said to James before, it's like this comes up every couple of years, that there's a work stoppage possibly coming. So like how is this one any different from any of the ones that they've had, in recent years? So I don't necessarily buy it. It just seems like market suppression just for the sake of trying to keep some of these contracts down and push these young guys up faster just to keep the salaries down. That's what it looks like from my point of view.
So did you think, like, during the whole Bregman thing, that like the Tigers wanted to go long term? They wanted to do like a 6-year deal and would have been fine with that, and it was like pushback from the other side. He didn't want to be in Detroit, or he wanted to be out after 2, something like that.
Yeah, I think there's something to that to be said. Thank you for the Max Fried. I totally forgot about Max Fried there. Yeah, sorry about that, Howard. Yeah, that's sometimes it was early on with the signing, but
Blake Snell signed too for quite a bit of money. Yeah,
I mean, maybe it's like the top frontline guys, but even the mid range guys, maybe that's what it is. It felt like the mid range guys didn't get their due, but no, what was it saying? Sorry, I lost my train of thought there with that, but it's just I feel like there is a man, hold on, sorry, I'm trying to look. I got distracted with the Max Fried thing.
On Bregman,
Bregman,
because it was reported that the Tigers actually kind of wanted to go long. They were ready to go 6 years, whatever.
Yeah, with Bregman, I think what it was is that there was no opt out, and for him, he wanted that opt out. I mean, that's what it was, and the Tigers weren't budging on it. And I'm sorry, there was going to be opt out after year 1, and that's what it was. And the Tigers didn't want to do that. They wanted to opt out of year 2, and so that's where the back and forth came from. And to me, it's just the whole thing. The whole thing is unfortunate because I thought that Bregman wasn't going to be just the way that him and Hinch had this whole synergy and everything. But I mean, hey, you know what? He got paid, and he got as much money as he can. Who knows? Maybe he comes back after opt out year with Boston. I don't know. Even with their whole Rafael Devers thing, but I mean, his defensive metrics are terrible, and so. Anyways, I mean, I don't know, like that. Even that was even strange. Like I thought that Nolan Arenado was going to end up in Boston. I thought that for sure, based off all the things that were suggested, and the Cardinals did nothing. That was such a weird man. Imagine being a Cardinals fan right now. Ugh.
Yeah. They didn't sign any bats. There's a couple of teams that are, Seattle. Imagine being a Seattle fan right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, they usually trade. Jerry does all the trading all the time, and there was nothing. They barely made any moves this summer.
Because I think they can't take on any money, so he's just kind of in a tough spot. So, hey, have you seen Max Clark in person?
I've seen him. Yeah, I seen him a couple times at West Michigan last year, and in Lansing too. And the bat does sound like we saw him for a 3-game series against the Lugnuts, and it was his closing speed in center field to the way his approaches at the play. He had a really good couple at bats. I think there was a ball where I think he drove one. I think he had a double in the game we saw him in Lansing, and then in West Michigan, same thing. Really good speed. I like him and Kevin McGonigal. Watching those two guys in person. McGonigal had a tough series when we watched him. He was just coming up from Lakeland, but him and Kevin McGonigal both are legit. Like that's, to me, I don't really often say that. Like I try not to go too far off the beaten path of that thing, but watching him and McGonigal both at the plate, especially McGonigal takes the ball the other way when he has to. Same thing with Clark. Both players are really. I know people are kind of bullish about McGonigal, and I don't know why. Watching him today play third, he played third for the first time today, and he showed range that I thought he didn't have. So I'll admit that I was wrong. I thought he, maybe would be a second, maybe short would be a stretch, but he showed today a gun at third. I was like, whoa, crap, what was that? So.
Yeah, Ian, I love Max Clark. That's gonna suck.
I wasn't happy about that pick at all. My son, who just popped in the comments, we've been watching Max Clark on YouTube for a few years, and seeing him just slip out of our fingers.
Yeah, I mean, same draft. Him and McGonigal both, man. I can't argue that.
When that happens for the White Sox, it's always pitchers. We get multiple pitchers in a draft, never multiple hitters, unfortunately. Are you good, James? All right, Rogelio. Do you want to let people know where they can find you and your content?
Yeah, you can find us over at tigersmlreport.com, our YouTube channel, Tigers Minor League Report, and also on Facebook, Tigers Minor League Report as well. And we also have a Patreon out there we put some exclusive content out there, and we just finished our top 46 and beyond board. So we have prop reports for everybody. Same thing like how you guys, we're fans of your work too as well. You guys do an excellent job, and we always try to promote our friendly route. Like we have the Cleveland guys, and you guys do a fantastic job. So yeah, those were the avenues you could find us. So thanks for your time, gentlemen.
Oh, thanks for popping on. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for the info, and we'll catch up with you, and hopefully, I don't want to say you guys have a great season, but I hope you have a great season.
You know what, though? I will say this. I love I honestly like the White Sox fans a lot. I do. It's like something like it inherently, since I started doing baseball podcasts, I always like the White Sox community. Very intelligent group of folks out there. You guys do a fantastic job. But like the fans do the same thing. It's better than the Michigan State thing, where people, whatever side you're on, it's really weird. But with the White Sox fans, it's like, oh, okay, healthy respect. So.
Indeed. All right. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And I'm going to walk us out here, James. You have been watching / listening to the Future Sox podcast. If you are listening to this in podcast form, know that you can find us every Sunday night at 8 p.m. on YouTube and the Purple app. You can also find this podcast along with all our written content at FutureSox.net. If you are looking for White Sox prospect highlights, you can find them on X at FutureSox and now also here on our YouTube channel. If you love the content and want to support us here at FutureSox, there is a link to our Patreon in our channel description and at FutureSox.net. You can also toss up a super chat on our YouTube stream. Also, don't forget to like this stream and subscribe with notifications so you know when we're going live while helping us in the World Wide Web algorithms. Before we run out here, James, do you want to say something about next week at all?
Yeah, so next week we have obviously another live show, but we're going to have Connor McKnight of CHSN for the entire hour. So that's, if something pressing happens where me and Ian need to come back and do something solo, maybe we can talk about that. But as of now, next Sunday is us and Connor McKnight for just a White Sox preview.
Thanks so much. My name is Ian Eskridge at Daily White Sox. He is James Fox at JamesFox917. We appreciate all of you. Thank you for listening and commenting in the chat. Thanks for coming to watch. You guys drive our community and our chat. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging out. You guys are the best. And we will catch up with you guys next week at 8 p.m. on Sunday. Have a great night. Thank you so much and good night.